Hello, diplomats. I hope you're all doing good and happily studying for the forthcoming examinations. So, in this video today, we are going to discuss one of the important. I think everything is important. I don't think one particular thing is more important than the other. But, however, in the news, we have UAE and Israel deal or peace agreement that has been termed as a new chapter in establishing peace and conflict transformation in West Asia. America calls it historic, and many other countries have to say various things on this deal. So, United Arab Emirates and Israel have this peace agreement, which has an elaborate agreement on various issues. It had issues about technology transfer. It had agreements and MOUs on biotechnology, on healthcare, on defense, on cyber surveillance, and also technology sharing. And in fact, UAE and Israel are calling it in a joint statement. They call it will give a strategic advantage to both the countries. So in this backdrop of UAE and Israel deal or peace agreement, we are going to first understand the importance of West Asia, because if you see, most importantly, if you have to understand the West Asia, because there are so many questions about conflict zones that keep appearing in the exam, especially in the prelims, in terms of match the following, or in terms of the issues or the organizations or the geographically important places of West Asia. And two, there are also many questions in IR that keep coming, and there are also many questions it is strategically asked for many people who have taken optionals like political science and international relations or public administration, or people who generally are inclined towards Indian foreign service, or for that matter everybody. So, in that case, West Asia as a zone, the entire West Asian countries and that particular part of this world is very crucial because of its conflict ridden nature. There are constant wars, proxy wars happening, there are constant instability that are being created or that are being imported, whatever we want to call. There's continuous tussle between various countries among that particular countries in that particular region. So hence, West Asia is a highly volatile region and highly dynamic region, to put it in a very typical world international relations language. So this very volatility of politics and the way conflicts are always happening in that region. First, we have to realize why West Asia as a region is important for India. So we're going to understand that, and in the next part, we are going to substantiate why West Asia is important. And in that scenario, we're going to read UAE and Israel's peace agreement. However, studying West Asia is a really big and time-consuming process. So in that case, and also very confusing process. So in that case, what we are going to do is we are going to divide this entire West Asia approach of India and what's happening in West Asia into various parts. As and when we get into the news and current affairs, we will have a different videos on one of the topic, so that you understand every topic clearly, and at the end you have a holistic understanding of the entire region, so that it will help you for better retention and also better clarity of the topic. So today we will discuss the importance of West Asia as a region for India. What do we have any West Asia policy, and how are we pursuing it? What are the major players in West Asia? What are the dynamics behind them? And in that light, we are going to discuss UAE and Israel agreement. So now West Asia. So I think more than anything else, there's a concept called hegemony in international relations or in political science, or whatever you want to put it. So, what exactly hegemony is? Hegemony is a consolidation of power over a period of time and a strong control over all the spheres of that particular life or event. So, that means hegemony. So, having power is not hegemony. Having a continuous power, having a very strong understanding of power and larger dynamics of that particular thing becomes hegemony. So hegemony is a larger concept of power, that not just in one particular field, but you have control and power over everything. So that's called hegemony. So why we are discussing this concept of hegemony is we all are driven by hegemonic factors. Let's say something like we call some XYZ as XYZ because of somebody started calling them, because the powerful started calling them. So even true, to understand West Asia, we often call it Middle East. When I was a child or when I was studying my graduation, most of my friends and my some of my teachers also would always say it, well, Middle East, Middle East, Middle East. So then I would wonder where is Middle East? We are already in the Southeast Asia, South Asia and Southeast Asian, but Asia would be that side, right? So I've always had this question. So This is called Middle East for USA. This is called Middle East for people who are in the other part of the world, right? Since they are so powerful, since America, United States of America, had established its hegemony over most of the things, including vocabulary, including terminology, including the way they decide the politics of other countries, the way they put in forth the terms and conditions of all kinds of engagement in world politics, has been a decisive factor. So hence the concept of hegemony in world politics plays a huge role. Who is hegemonic will have a more dictating tendency. So in that case, the very fact that we have to stop calling it Middle East, and thankfully now we started calling it West Asia. So that's West Asia. So what is West Asia? West Asia is very important for India because 70% of India's imported energy comes from West Asia. So the first thing, the fundamental thing that should come to your mind, the first subheading you should start thinking in terms of compartmentalizing the importance of West Asia would be energy security. For India's energy security, the West Asia is so huge and so crucial because 70% of our energy needs are being satisfied by West Asian countries. And we have something called remittance economy. How is remittance economy? We see most of our friends from Kerala are working in Oman, Qatar, Saudi, Iran, Iraq. Some of them are in Afghanistan. This huge labor traveling from India, some particular pockets of this country, and are working in most Arab and Gulf region and West Asian region. They are contributing very positively for their economy and taking part in the economic process, and they earn money and they send back money. So economically, remittance economy is something that is very crucial when it comes to West Asia. And how is this remittance economy done? Because we have huge diaspora. We almost have 11 million Indians living there who are earning and who are contributing to the various countries in various forms and are helping those countries to grow. Hence, the diaspora community of India is very strong in West Asia. Another, it's a gateway to Central Asia. So we all know that Central Asia, most of the countries are landlocked. We have no transit facilities to go to them. So West Asia is a better route for us to go to Central Asia. Geostrategic importance. What is the geostrategic importance? Geostrategic importance is to reduce the influence of China in West Asia. It's very important that we have good relationship with most of the countries, and also in the Arabian Sea. So Arabian Sea towards the western side of India is also plays a huge role because that's our gateway to African countries, also Gulf countries, also the entire West Asian countries, right? So geostrategically, West Asia is important, and most importantly, we need to have cooperation. Cooperation, why? Because we are also part of the contiguous part of the Indian Ocean. We are the part of the Indian littorals. These countries play a huge role in terms of tackling piracy, blue economy, having cooperation in trafficking, helping in terms of establishing larger rules, and cooperation of West Asian countries will also help India's bargaining power at international forums. It will also strengthen India's commitment to be part of permanent member of UN Security Council. We can cooperate with them on larger environmental issues. So apart from the pinpointed geostrategic importance in terms of energy security, diaspora, remittance economy, geostrategical importance, we also have various other issues where we can possibly cooperate, right? So, but what are the challenges? Now we've understood it's important, but what are the challenges related to it? The first challenge that we all constantly face with West Asia is it's conflict ridden. This huge conflict happening. There are continuous wars, proxy wars being fought. One country is bombing another country. Other country is creating a proxy war on another country. So there are a group of countries who are trying to have an alliance and counter another country. So the political environment and political instability is something that is bothering the international community over a period of time because of its inherent conflict nature. And what is the reason for this conflict? What are the players involved in this conflict? That's one part. And second part is, like I said, the regional players are very particular about what they're believing in, and they have a very fundamentalist understanding rather than trying to open their arenas for cooperation and dialogue. Take example of South Asia. South Asia, the irritant in South Asian cooperation is hugely India-Pakistan issue, right? Apart from that, we have a very good and harmonious relationship with most of the countries in SAARC region, right? Assume that all the countries are fighting in the SAARC nation. Nepal, Sri Lanka are fighting, Sri Lanka and India are fighting, India and Nepal, Bhutan are fighting, Bhutan and China are fighting, China and Pakistan are fighting. So what do you understand by this a little fighting metaphor? Is when you're constantly under conflict, you lose vision to have an integration, you lose vision to have an economic cooperation, and fundamentally you lose a vision to have a establishing peace and stable order in that particular region. That is a problem. So when people are constantly involving in conflict, it becomes huge hindrance for any kind of engagement, and there is no prosperity, right? At the end of the day, in world, in the international community, whether it is our own individual lives, whether it is country, whether it is nation states, we all cherish a value called peace. That cherished value of peace is only possible when we transform these conflicts in a more substantial and in a more sustainable way. That is clearly absent in West Asia, so it becomes a matter of concern. And we also have, since whenever there is conflict and whenever there are volatile conditions in one particular region, the other country seems to show a lot of interest, because those are the tussle grounds for them even to show their own power, like I told about hegemony of USA, hegemony of Russia. So these two players play a huge role in West Asian politics. Russia keeps coming in, United States of America keeps coming in, so the extra regional players also have a huge role to play in establishing stability. That is one problem. Next, we have an internal conflict, we have something called Gulf Cooperation Council, where Iran is not a member of that. This is an important question, and I think it's also previous year's prelims question. Gulf Cooperation Council is a Saudi backed group, where some countries are part of that group, where Iran is not a member of Gulf Cooperation Council. So they're trying to isolate Iran, and they have a ghettoization or grouping of few particular countries. Then we have a very age-old historical problem of Shia-Sunni conflict that is really stopping the process of any kind of progress. And next we also have external intervention, like that we have mentioned about USA and America, and there is huge fear of rise of religious fundamentalism. So whenever there is a rise of religious fundamentalism, the ethnic conflicts and social cleavages get much more deepened, and it will add fuel to the existing fire. So it will only make peace a utopian idea. Maybe it cannot be ever achieved in that particular region. Then when you have religious fundamentalism and many groups fighting, we naturally will have huge radicalization happening in that particular region. So terrorist outfits have a lot of presence. ISIS, Al Qaeda, different various other regional outfits have a huge control over many parts and swathes of land in this particular region, which are actually questioning the very stability of this region. And next, most importantly, we have another player called Israel-Palestine issue. So the Israel-Palestine issue and other tension in the West Asian region, where the entire Arab world is fighting against Israel and its alleged illegal occupation of Palestine. So this is one such issue. So now we've understood, and most importantly, the constant role of United States of America and Russia will actually accentuate the conflict in this region again, time and again. Initially United States of America said it's going to withdraw its forces from Afghanistan. Again, it said that we are going to have sanctions and on Iran nuclear deal, where it was a huge, in fact, a huge contribution and a win situation for Obama's administration, that it took a lot of deal to sign an Iran nuclear deal. But however, the Trump administration has took it back. So what do you understand by these things? So there are multiple things from multiple players are happening at one time. This shows the dynamicity of that region, but it also poses fundamental questions to the international community. That in such situation, how do we establish peace? In such situation, in intra-regional conflicts, with external interventions, with huge dynamics of power politics, how are we going to go ahead? That's a fundamental question that we have. So in this case, India's role becomes important, that India as a country, as an anti-colonial country, anti-apartheid country, and a country which stands for certain principles of peace, mutual coexistence, and non-interference, India's stand is very clear. India appeals to the international community and also to West Asian countries to transform all kinds of conflict in a peaceful manner, in a dialogue induced manner, and India stands clearly on this stand, that it always want to maintain a very principled distance and also want to have a very cooperative outlook towards the conflict that's happening in this region. So India, in fact, recently when this Israel UA deal happened, a peace agreement happened, India officially said that India is happy with the agreement that has come up because it's a new change for better. But India is also hoping for the countries to come together and peacefully commit themselves to the two-state solution. Now, what is two-state solution? It's related to Israel-Palestine issue, and this is also a previously asked question. So this means to understand West Asia, to know what exactly is happening there and various countries and various dynamic players, you need to understand a very larger, comprehensive, and clear view on this particular thing. So that briefly ends the importance of West Asia. Now, coming from West Asia, importance of West Asia, in that light, we are going to discuss UAE and Israel. So now what exactly is happening with the Arab world and Israel? Arab world is absolutely not okay with having any kind of relationship with Israel because of its accused illegal occupation of many parts of Palestine and huge humanitarian crisis and refugee crisis that's happening in Palestine. So in that light, we have three countries that have signed agreements with Israel. One is Egypt. It signed an agreement with it in 1979 and it recognized Israel. Second is Jordan. It signed an agreement in 1994. And UAE is the only third country from the Arab world, in fact, the first country from the Gulf region to sign an agreement with Israel in 2020. So now what is the problem? This is the first country to even recognize, is first Gulf country even to recognize Israel. So what is the problem is this, the recent agreement shows certain dynamics. The first thing is Arab countries are now gradually decoupling themselves from the Palestinian question. Right? What is the Palestinian question? The self-determination movement of Palestine or liberation of Palestine is to recognize two-state solution, recognize Palestine as a state and Israel as a state, and withdraw from all the illegal occupation done by Israel and let them have their own governments and have a peaceful existence. But however, Israel is stalling the peace process over a period of time, and hence the Arab world is not at all happy and is strategically moved away from Israel. But in this case, it seems that presently in the situation that we are in, the Arab countries are gradually decoupling themselves from this because they are looking for the larger advantages of having association with Israel. So Israel made peace with an Arab country without our returning to 1967 borders. So Israel's position is very clear. They clearly say that we're not going to return to the old boundaries. We're not going to go back. This has been Israel's constant stand on the issue of occupation. But however, there is something called the Arab Peace Initiative. This is a Saudi Arabia-led initiative. So it endorsed Arab League and offered recognition to Israel in exchange of full withdrawal from occupied territories. So the fundamental clause of any agreement that the Arab countries would go with Israel is they have to withdraw from the illegally occupied territories in Palestine. Now, what are these territories? Israel, the Jewish state, have to relax and has to go back and has to stop its inhuman and illegal occupation of Palestinian territories and start talk with the occupier and the occupied. This is the verbatim quote unquote from the Arab Initiative, which says that any kind of further cooperation is only possible when this conditionality is met. So after this, what exactly Israel was trying to do? So Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, they're all a part of one group. And of course, they're all opposing Israel in 1948. That's when Israel started taking control and it started establishing its government. But Israel and Arab have actually had a very dynamic conflictual history. The first thing goes as early as in 1956, we have Suez Canal crisis. That's called the famous Suez conflict. Then they again have 1967, a 6-day war. The 6-day war was also again a huge conflict. Then in 1973, they have something called Yom Kippur War, which was again a conflict between these two, this group and Israel. In 1967, Israel have captured certain regions. So that's the reason Israel, the previous statement which I read out for you, it said there's no returning back to before 1964. So in that case, now these are the important areas where constantly questions in UPSC prelims have occurred, and the questions are going to again come, are again going to come. One is, in 1967, what Israel did is Israel captured Gaza from Egypt, Gaza Strip. Then it took East Jerusalem, West Bank from Jordan. It took the famous Golan Heights from Syria. So Golan Heights have appeared in 2011 and again in 2017 or 16, if I'm not wrong. So where is Golan Heights, and which Golan Heights is in Syria, has been illegally occupied by Israel. So now I think now it's better to even contextualize the importance of West Asian region, because the questions are coming, because as an aspirant you have to actually know the conflict zones and why particular conflicts are of huge significance. So in this case of after illegal occupation of these three important strategical geographical locations, Arab countries have convened and have declared three no's. And what are these no's? They said there is no peace with Israel, there is no talks with Israel, there is no recognition of Israel. So the declaration has been agreed by all the Arab countries, considering the colonial attitude or the very aggressive attitude of Israel in terms of illegal occupation, and also the kind of violence it's unleashing on people of Palestine as per Arab countries. So now, what are the geopolitical implications? So in West Asian region, which I said we are going to discuss in various in various subheadings and various columns in upcoming videos, is there are three major players in West Asia. If you want to put it, I mean, you can call every other country major because every country is involved in conflict. But however, for a theoretical understanding, we have three countries. We might call it tripolar contest. Tripolar strategic contest is between three countries. One is the Turkey, two is Iran, and three is Saudi Arabia. So these three countries are stuck in a strategic tripolar contest, or maybe you could call it strategic tripolar tussle, which is having huge implication on West Asian stability. So in this case, we have something called Saudi bloc, which is Egypt, UAE and Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia is also the pioneer of Gulf Cooperation Council. And all these people, the Saudi bloc, have interest to align with US. Hence, so it's natural. The one strategic ally of Israel is US, that the world knows. So why Saudi countries or Egypt or Jordan or UAE are signing an agreement with Israel is because even these particular countries want to align their interests with United States of America. So if you are aligning with Israel, you're also aligning yourselves with United States of America. So it's a very linear strategic progression in international relations. So in this case, Turkey is a strong supporter of Palestine. Iran is a strong supporter. But however, Iran and USA have a very well established rivalry between them, and we've already said that Trump administration has withdrew themselves from the Iran nuclear deal and has approved sanctions on Iran. So Iran is obviously anti-US. Turkey has a very different, very strategic balancing act of sometimes being anti-US, sometimes trying to balance itself on the issue-based incidents. So now Turkey, Iran and Saudi Arabia, this tripolar contest on one hand, Saudi bloc and certain countries which want to align their interest with United States of America on the other hand, and the other existing nations in West Asia. And most importantly, how these countries are unleashing different kind of power politics on each other is something that is important. So why United States of America calls this particular deal between UAE and Israel as something historical and a strategic next step is because it is serving the interests and purposes of United States of America. So the present UAE and Israel deal is actually opening up gates for many Arab countries which want to align its interests with United States of America, and they're also constantly trying to decouple themselves from the issue of Palestine, and most importantly, by furthering their agenda of aligning their interests with United States of America, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Egypt and other countries are trying to exert their geopolitical dominance over other countries in West Asia. So this is roughly the deal of UAE and Russia. And we've, in the starting of the video, we've already discussed the areas that the peace agreement was talking about, or the various MOUs you're talking about. More than the nitty gritties of what are there in the agreement, the larger strategic implication of this agreement comes with the strategic alliances that are ever changing in West Asian region. So hence, I hope you have understood the importance of West Asia. What are the major players in West Asia? How our recent changing alliances would help in better understanding of West Asian region importance, and finally the importance of UAE and Israel agreement, and in that light the larger strategic implication of the West Asian region as a whole. Thank you very much.